Now we are moving on to World War I and the Great Depression. And as I mentioned to the other classes, this is a great presentation on just kind of studying history. What I've liked about history is that we can learn a lot from the past and try not to repeat, the errors moving forward. And so there's a lot in World War I and the Great Depression that we can learn. And what I also like about history, it's a study of patterns. It's great to have this information. Some of it's interesting, but there's some great helpful tools. And what is patterns? And so we're going to look at what caused, or many causes of World War I and the Great Depression, and the effects. And hopefully we'll learn something and not repeat history moving forward. As we mentioned in another class, we've had World War I, World War II, and hey, if we learn from history, we won't have a World War III. That's our goal. All right, World War I. It's from 1914 to 1918. There are some causes. In most events, there's not just one cause. There are multiple causes. And so let's go over some vocabulary. Extreme nationalism. It's being patriotic, but extremely patriotic, right? Imperialism. It's a policy that governments have of influencing country power through diplomatic and military means. Militarism. It's a strong military spirit or policy. And then alliances. The way they're essentially treaties and agreements between countries. And to bring in like a sports analogy, it's like teams. Like here's one team, here's another team, and they agree that they're going to work together. So just like in life, you want to be careful who you agree to be in an alliance with, right? So these countries are essentially agreeing to back each other up. So we see the map of Europe in 1914, some of these alliances. If you look at the scale, you have the purple mauve color. That's a triple alliance. That's Germany, Italy, Austria, Hungary. And then the triple alliance in blue. You have UK, France, Morocco, Algeria, Russia. And then you have that small green area, the Russian allies. And that small area is really where the start of World War I happens, right there. So, June 1914, there's an assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria by a Serbian national. And although this Archduke wasn't one of the main political players at the time, it starts World War I. Sean, did you have a question?
Yeah, going to that map, I thought Italy was a part of the alliance ally.
There you go. So it's part of the Triple Alliance. Now, what you may be thinking about, keep in mind, the alliances in World War I aren't exactly the same alliances in World War II.
Oh, I know, I'm just saying, I thought
So-
that Italy was like part of like France.
Yeah, not at this point. Yeah. So, after the Archduke is assassinated, there's a response. And that's another great thing about history. We learn about cause and effects. There's a cause and effect for our actions, the government's actions. And here, after the assassination, Austria-Hungary declares war against Serbia. Somewhere in that small area, the green on the map. And above it is Austria-Hungary. They declare war on Serbia because the Serbian nationalists assassinated their Archduke. But then Russia declares war on Austria-Hungary, because they're in different alliances. And then Germany, they end up pulling in the rest of the allies. Now, war begins, but not for the U.S. yet. As we'll talk in a minute, we have like a hands-off approach. And we're just kind of waiting to see what happens in Europe. Okay, so then the key players in World War I, they're divided between the Allied powers and the Central powers. And the Allied powers include England, France, Russia, and the U.S. So even though we have pretty much a hands-off approach at this point, we're later pulled into the war. And then the Central powers include Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, which is Turkey. And as if you notice, a lot of times in history, these alliances change. So during World War I, we are in alliance with Russia. And as you see over time, that has changed, right? We had the Cold War. And now it's Turkey rather than the Ottoman Empire. Some key facts about World War I. Like most wars, there are different strategies that emerge and technology. And trench warfare was utilized significantly during World War I. There were lots of casualties. In some aspects, trench warfare was helpful. In others, it was devastating. And in World War I, as indicated, there are many countries involved. Technology. We gained a lot of technology through the military. One is airplanes. Even though at this point, the Wright brothers have already experimented and they have flight, but it's not really utilized for the mass population until it's improved and advanced through military. So airplanes, tanks, machine guns, grenades, and chemical weapons. Now, I shared with the previous classes that right after high school, I went into the military. And those nice gas masks, we had to wear something like that during boot camp. They put you in this room and they put in gas. It's not lethal gas, but they teach us to stay calm and don the gas mask and get out of there at a certain time. Lots of fun, but it was kind of like that. Oh, submarines. So I was in the Navy, so I dealt a lot with submarines. I helped supply them. But submarines played a large role in World War I, and particularly for the Germans. So, okay, we've had this hands-off approach called isolationism. It's basically a neutral stance. War is very profitable. The United States is struggling a little bit at this time. War is profitable. Well, the Lusitania. Who's heard of the Lusitania? Sean? Yeah. Do you remember, what do you remember about the Lusitania?
I know like a British cruise liner, and it was like it was what got like Americans into the war partly.
Yeah, it's one of those significant events that pulls the United States out of that isolationism. Because at first they're like, oh, I don't want to get involved. But there's some Americans on the Lusitania. So they're no longer, they start reconsidering their approach. In addition to the Lusitania, we have a thing called the Zimmerman telegram. Now this was interesting. The telegram was intercepted by Americans. It was a letter from Germany to Mexico that said, hey, Mexico, if you help us out, we'll make sure Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona goes back to you. because they lost that in 1848. Well, again, the Americans are like, wait, we're going to reevaluate this isolationism. And at that point, President Woodrow Wilson meets with Congress and they declare war. And I don't know if we mentioned it during, balance of powers, but Congress has to approve war. The president goes to Congress, since Congress represents us, and